Well, I think that they're extremely important because the 104th Division, World War II Division, did such great things. They were in combat continuously for more than 180 days, fought in parts of Belgium and then, of course, into Germany. And these guys have a bond that was created by that, and it's important for them to get together. And their children grew up coming to these annual conventions. And what's amazing to me is that you see the Timberwolf pups, as they call them, the children and grandchildren, carrying on the tradition. Many of them here this weekend, their father has long since died, but they still come to these annual meetings. And I asked them at one point, why do you do that? And they said, well, to honor our father, first of all. But then we grew up, and we have so many friends here. We like to get together and honor our parents every year. So the camaraderie is important, the memories are important, and just the association. I think it's to them it's an organization that was developed early in their lives and has continued to be a vital part of their life experience. Well, I think General Allen was a soldier's general, as these World War II vets call him. He put the interests of his soldiers above himself, but of course he always had a mission to accomplish. So there were more than 1,400 Timberwolves that were killed during World War II, but the soldiers loved Terry Allen. He did many things for the Timberwolves. For one thing, he pushed them to train and train hard. He taught them to fight at night. His philosophy was that during that day and age, you didn't have night vision goggles and you couldn't see in the dark, and night fighting was not a common thing. It was done by some units throughout the Army, but this division made it a practice to always attack at night. And the general rule in the 104th Division was attack after dark. And that was one of the ways Allen cared for his men. It was because he felt like he'd have less casualties if he attacked during the night. But he was a brilliant tactician. He was a hard-working general. He was ferocious, and he was a tough general, a fighter, but at the same time, he cared deeply about his men. He was not given to spit and polish. They liked that about him too. His philosophy was get the job done, fight all your battles, and the motto of the division was nothing in hell can ever stop the Timberwolves. And he gave that, I think he gave the division that motto. That certainly was his motto. And of course, Terry Allen also had commanded the Big Red One in Africa, in northern Africa. The same tenacity. He was loved by the men of the Big Red One as well. When I was commanding the 104th, I had an opportunity to go to Fort Riley, Kansas, and I was sitting across the breakfast table from the commanding general of the 1st Division, the Big Red One, and of course I was the commanding general at the time of the 104th Division, and we were training soldiers to go to Iraq together. I had a task force called Task Force Desert Wolf training at Fort Riley with the Big Red One to go to Iraq to train the Iraqi army. And he just made the comment, he said, Terry Allen would be proud to see the two of us sitting here together, both of them, to the two commanding generals of the two divisions he commanded during World War II. These guys were committed to the country, and they went off to fight a war that had no end in sight that they knew about. And they went as a part of these units. They were willing to lay down their lives for the things that they believed in, for people they'd never met, for countries they'd never been to. And they risked, and many of them not only risked their lives, but they lost their lives. And they did it without murmuring, without grumbling, and there was no relief in sight, just like when the 104th Division went into combat in the fall of 1944. There was no plan for them to rotate out. They were just there until it was over, day in and day out, in the mud and the cold and the rain, and it just, you look at that situation, and I often wonder how I would have responded to being in their situation, in the wet and the cold and the mud, and the Germans were a ferocious enemy. I mean, the German army was a very good army, and these guys were up against the best in the world, except I happen to believe that we're the best in the world. We proved that. These guys proved it, not me, not we, but the World War II generation proved that. Well, I think I would say three things: hope, optimism, and hard work. I think that defines this generation. They were hoping for a brighter future for their children and grandchildren. They were optimistic about our country and freedom throughout the world, and they were definitely committed to hard work. Well, I'm wearing the crest, although I'm now retired. I continue to wear this crest in honor of the 104th Division World War II Timberwolves. When I became commanding general, I went around to all the units to visit. We had a drill sergeant brigade at that time, and I would always typically ask the soldiers, what would you like to see? What do I need to do as commanding general? What can I do to make your life better, to improve the performance of the division? And he said, sir, can you get rid of this bird? Well, I didn't think about it because we officers did not wear the crest on our cap. We wear our rank on our headgear. But all the enlisted soldiers wore the circle with the bird. It's actually a marlin, I think, and it has some historical significance. And so he said, get rid of it, because we go to these basic training, like Fort Jackson, South Carolina, we go to basic training bases, forts, and they nickname us and call us the Bluebird Division. And so I said, well, I think we can work on that. But so we set it took about 3 years to get the crest changed. So we got the 104th Division crest changed. I read the history book about how the division was known as for its ability to fight at night. And on one occasion, the 104th Division, one of the battalions attacked at night. The battalion commander told them, you won't load any ammunition in your weapons. We'll fight tonight with hand grenades and bayonets. And that way, anybody who fires a weapon will know it's a German, because they couldn't tell. You start firing at night, all you see is muzzle flashes, but since they had no bullets in their weapons, they would know that it was a German. They took them out with hand grenades and bayonets. And so in honor of that historical story, I had my aide redesign. He was very good, very talented at drafting, and he drew a new design for the crest, which had the bayonet and the hand grenade. At the bottom of the crest is the hand grenade, and the bayonets across the top of the crest, and we put the wolf patch in the middle of it, which is the wolf patch that was worn on the shoulder of the World War II division. And we still wore that on our shoulder, but so I took that and put it together and put the word Night Fighters on it. And we had to send it to the Army Institute of Heraldry. Then the G1 of the Army had to approve it. First it had to go through my boss, who was General Helmley at the time, the Chief of the Army Reserve. From there to the Institute of Heraldry. And I personally went to the Institute of Heraldry in Virginia and met with the civilians who ran that organization. And this crest then had to be approved by the G1 of the Army, who fortunately at that time happened to be a West Point classmate of mine, a guy named Lieutenant General Hagenbach. And it took a long time to get there, but once General Hagenbach got it, and I talked to him about it, gave him a packet on it, and General Hagenbach approved it in about 2 days, so it didn't stay there very long. Well, I don't know. I certainly, as you can tell, I talk like I have a frog in my throat this weekend. I'm having voice problems, but music's always been a big part of my life. That's kind of a Southern thing. I'm from Tupelo, Mississippi, the home of Elvis Presley. I'm certainly no Elvis, but we start singing in church at a very young age. And when I went to West Point Military Academy, I was in the Glee Club, and just always enjoyed music. And that's sort of a tradition of the South. It's a tradition of this country. I mean, everybody in this country loves music, I think. And it's just something I like to do. It's fun. Well, I think this is a great celebration. I came to the first one in 2004. I was commanding general of the 104th Division at the time. And I realized what a great division, what great soldiers these guys were. And I was very impressed. So I decided I would come back, and the next year I brought, the 104th Division had a band at the time. I brought the 104th Division band. And I've developed a link and a relationship with these World War II veterans. And I've promised them that I would always be here. And this is my 9th year to attend these reunions. So it's a great, first of all, as far as the division is concerned, the World War II guys, it's a great division. My intent was to link the 104th Division of World War II with the 104th Division of the present time. And General Hardin is here this weekend. Every commanding general of the division since me has also come to these reunions, and we maintain that bond and that link. And I will say this about the present-day 104th Division. In 2004, we sent the 104th Division NCO Academy to Iraq, and the 104th Division Timberwolves of 2004 stood up the first training academy in Iraq for the non-commissioned officers of the Iraqi Army. Then later on, we deployed more than 300 soldiers in Task Force Desert Wolf to do the same thing to train the Iraqi Army. In addition to that, we deployed numerous soldiers individually in many different jobs throughout Iraq. So the 104th Division made a substantial contribution in the effort in Iraq between 2004 and 2009. So you have great soldiers, and today the 104th Division is in charge of the ROTC training, working with Cadet Command. So all the officers in the country, if you go to West Point Military Academy, you're going to see the Timberwolf during the summer training at West Point, because we have Timberwolf soldiers who are there during the summer training West Point cadets. So the 104th Division of today is continuing to make a substantial contribution. We have a great Army today, great soldiers, and I'm positive about where our country is going. We have struggles. We've always had struggles. People forget sometimes that World War II came out of the Great Depression. Do we have problems in this country? Sure, we have problems. But they forget that every generation has had its challenges. It's not what kind of challenges we have, it's what we do to meet those challenges. And I was known as the never give in general because I like to quote Winston Churchill. In 1941, Winston Churchill was speaking to the Harrows Boys School graduation. And you got to put it in the context of the times. People in England were hearing sirens go off when there was an air raid, and they would run to the subways and the bomb shelters because the Germans were bombing England in 1941. And Europe had already fallen. The Germans already controlled France, the Netherlands, Belgium, all of Europe, what we know as Western Europe. And here's this Winston Churchill, Prime Minister of a small country, really, and he goes to speak to this school, and he's a short guy with a stubby cigar, and they're expecting some lengthy, eloquent speech, and it's one of the shorter speeches that any politician's ever given. Winston Churchill basically just looked out over the crowd and he said, "Never give in." And then he repeated himself, "Never, never give in." And then he repeated himself a third time, "Never, never, never give in." When I'm giving this speech, I like to say never, 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 but I don't have a very good English accent. But he said, never give in to tyranny, to an enemy that's apparently overwhelming in their might, their force. And so the message that I would have for all Americans today is never give in. Our country was not built on a give-in attitude. We are a compassionate country. We're a generous country. When we go to another nation in the world like Belgium, we don't try to own their country when we leave. All we ask for is enough ground to bury our soldiers on. And there are American soldiers buried in Belgium at Flanders Field, and I've had the privilege of going there and laying a wreath in their honor. But throughout the world, we go to help people. And I guess the biggest thing I would say about these World War II soldiers is they were liberators, not occupiers. They went to liberate people and to give them freedom, not to occupy and take over their countries. That's unique in the history of the world, where you don't go to occupy, you go to liberate and then you come home. And that's what our nation is all about. We're a country of liberators, to bring freedom, peace, democracy to other parts of the world, and then we come home. And we leave some of our dead behind, but we don't ask for any other ground other than a place to bury them. So I just say, be optimistic. Our nation was not built with our chin around our bootstraps. And the 104th Division Timberwolves of World War II were those kind of people. And the 104th Division soldiers of today are those kind of people as well. And I would encourage all Americans to look up, don't look inward, look up and outward, and face life with optimism, hope, and our dreams can all come true.
That's brilliant. Thank you, General, for your time this morning and for your service.
Okay, thank you very much for taking time to do this, to interview these guys and capture their stories. Their stories are far more important than my story because these guys are amazing.